All right. Hi, everybody. This is Nathan Nichols, Marketing Coordinator for MetaScale. Thank you for joining us today for our webinar, Enable Faster Business, Modernize ETL with Hadoop. We have Ankur Gupta, Head of Sales and Marketing for MetaScale, and Sunil Kakade here today to discuss strategies for modernizing ETL with the Hadoop and big data tools. Just before we get started, I'd like to say if you have any questions, feel free to send them to the host via the chat feature, and we will answer them as we go along as we can, and then definitely have a question and answer period reserved at the end. So with that, I'm going to pass things over to Ankur Gupta.
Hey, thanks, Nathan. Thanks, everyone, for joining today. Before we start, I wanted to give you a quick introduction to MetaScale for those who are not familiar with our organization and what we do. So very briefly, MetaScale is a wholly owned subsidiary of Sears Holdings Corporation, the holding company that owns companies like Sears, Kmart, and brands such as Lens and Kenmore, Craftsman, DieHards of the world. We were born out of Sears after we saw a commercial opportunity to help other organizations with their big data needs. Sears was one of the early adopters of big data technologies. We started about 4 years ago, and a very large enterprise. We were among the first few who were even thinking about big data. Wasn't easy for us at that time. There was little help available, little information available. So we learned a lot of things hard way. Took us some time to set up and get going. But now, 4 years down the line, we're somewhat an expert in providing big data services in a large enterprise world. And so we formed MetaScale to help other enterprises so they don't have to go through similar pain points that we went through, and we can bring in all the knowledge, insights, capabilities, expertise, and talent within Sears world to enterprises outside so we can accelerate their big data journey. So we even though we come from retail side, we are completely industry agnostic. And because we come from a large enterprise, we actually provide a very strong enterprise point of view to other companies, other large, medium-sized enterprises on how to go about their big data journey. And we are not your typical vendor, so we are a completely vendor-neutral, platform-agnostic provider. For more information, you can visit our website. But that's it for a quick introduction for our company. Let me get into our webinar. So as you can see, the first slide that shows a classic enterprise challenge. So this, you see multiple circles here, and if not all, many of these may be what you may see in your organization. So, your budgets are not growing, but your IT problems constantly going. You have data latency, which is how we define it, is from the moment the data is created to when it can be used, is continue to be a problem. Just at the most basic of it, growing data is a big problem for many organizations, which they did not realize a couple of years ago. But now, as our lives are becoming more and more digital, and with the influence of social media and everything around us, which is becoming smart and grid device, we are getting data from multiple touch points that we were not getting before. So this data, which is also not your typical RDBMS structured data, is a constant problem for many organizations, and that results into several ETL complexities, which is the main focus point of our discussion today. How do you use Hadoop to modernize your traditional ETL that many of us are used to? So next page. One second. Here we go. All right. So before we talk about using Hadoop for modernization of ETL, let me give you a very brief, quick overview of Hadoop for those who are not familiar with this. It's an ecosystem of technologies, it's a project by Apache, open source. And in 2001, 2003, if I remember correctly, when Google published a paper on MapReduce, then some of the folks from Yahoo actually put together an open source ecosystem, which they call Hadoop, and made it open source and released it to the public in 2008. So since then, it has come a long way. The two main components of Hadoop are Hadoop distributed file system that allows file sharing and data protection across various physical servers, and MapReduce that basically allows you to do processing on a very large amount of data, both structured and unstructured. As we have laid out here, The key benefits of Hadoop are, one, flexibility. We're talking about commodity, cheap hardware that allows you to store a lot of amount of data without really increasing cost on your side. So that immediately solves the problem of storing large amount of both structured and unstructured data. Hadoop is not bound by any specific schema, so allows you to keep your data as you want. It's scalable, so you could easily add a rack to your existing rack and dramatically increase the memory size. So if your data is going from 1 to 10 or 200 terabytes and into petabytes, you do not have to start from ground zero again. You can actually add more and more space without really impacting your existing infrastructure and adding a lot of cost upfront. And finally, low cost, as I said before. If you're talking about commodity hardware with really cheap disk storage, and which is becoming, the storage is becoming more and more cheaper, it allows you to really store and manage a very large amount of data on commodity hardware using an open source technology, which has become very mature. Hadoop 2.0 just came out with the inclusion of Yarn now, and more and more enterprises are embracing it now. We continue to see it and continue to write about it, about the adoption of the same. So on the next page, what we have shown here is where Hadoop is useful versus your traditional EDW. And it really shows that as the data size grows on an enterprise side, Hadoop usage of Hadoop become more and more prominent. And just because it's not that your traditional EDW or traditional RDBMS cannot handle the data, it's just not cost effective or may not be efficient to manage that large amount of data if you're looking for quick processing, if you're looking for an economical processing. So as the data size grows, typically what we suggest our client, if you have data that's in 10 terabytes or more, it's really high time that you start thinking about Hadoop, exploring Hadoop. Maybe as Hadoop can provide the right solution for you. Now, why Hadoop? It actually touches base some of the problems that I talked about earlier. If growing data is not meeting production schedule because you have a large amount of data in jobs, maybe taking several hours, sometimes in days, Hadoop can really help there because of its very strong parallel processing power, and it allows you to process that very large amount of data in a much quicker time frame than your traditional systems would, and in a most cost-effective manner. So meeting production schedule is a huge benefit of using Hadoop. As you have seen on our side at Sears, where some of our jobs were taking several hours, and my colleague Sunil will talk a little bit more about it. Multiple copies of data, no single point of truth. That's, again, a typical ETL issue as more and more businesses within an organization start to make their own version of ETL. You really lose the single point of truth. The data is replicated so many times that you don't know where the original data was, and your answers become on the replication that somebody else did before you. So really lose the essence of data. Then there are several other problems like latency in data, EDW, your existing EDW unable to handle load, your mainframe workload over-consuming. That's a big use case on our side where we actually using Hadoop. We moved a lot of our batch processing from our typical EDW and mainframe to Hadoop and dramatically reduce our usage of MIPS, which is how we pay on mainframe. And use Hadoop to process that not only large amount of data, but save dramatic amount of cost on our side. Okay, so quick introduction to ETL. Who's not familiar with it? Extract, transform, load. We've all heard it. Extracting data from transactions or operations computers to load into analytical systems. So again, it's a multi-path process to insight. It's under pressure. And why we say so? Because the data is ETL'd so many times that you'll lose the essence of data. For example, in the retail world, you have different businesses. We have appliances, we have clothing, we have tools, and we have a key inventory file, but every business will make its own version of the file. So and then they write their own ETL logic on top of it. So we really would lose the sense of looking at the picture at a grander level, because if you're looking at the sales data by a store, it's ETL by individual businesses so much that you could, the same sales data coming from a store may result into different results, different number for different businesses. And that could be a key concern for a large organization like ours. So I've already started talking about challenges here. Some of those are listed here. ETL, your traditional ETL processes are not adequate for big data operations. They cannot handle the volume or provide results quickly. And as the data size grows on your side, and the more and more transformation happens as you are collecting the data and transforming it at the same time, you lose the essence or the truth behind the data. And a lot of time, I mean, who has not heard about the ETL issues, ETL bottlenecks? It's as simple as several hundred copies of Excel and Access on your side. So developing a fast and sophisticated business analytics operation at a large corporation can take a long time, and it requires hundreds of ETL changes. So what we want to do today is show you our way of how we have used Hadoop to use Hadoop as an analytics platform and manage many of the ETL pain points. So some of the other ETL pain points that I've listed here: modified and inconsistent data multiple times. When you're transforming the data, you're losing the essence, you're losing the truth behind it. And I'll have my colleague Sunil talk more about it. So the final slide that I'm going to talk to you about is transforming ETL with Hadoop. I'll touch base on it, and then I'll invite Sunil to go deeper into it. On our side at MetaScale, what we did, we actually completely turned around the concept of ETL. We use Hadoop as the central repository to manage all of our data, to keep the single source of truth, to keep the single version of truth, and keep data in multiple layers, probably what we call as gold, Smith, and other layers. So we are able to extract data from various both synchronous and asynchronous sources, and without that data changing it multiple times, we kept it in the most granular form. And from there, instead of doing ETL, what we did was we extracted, we loaded the data, and we transformed it as and when required. So the whole ETL concept changed into ELTTTT. So, and you may have by now heard a lot about using Hadoop as an enterprise data hub. It's a concept that's very close to us, something that we've been working on for the last several years. And MetaScale is, again, one of the early adopters of this concept and technology, and how do you really use Hadoop as that central repository of all the data and be able to extract the data as and when required, so you have the most granular form of the data, the single source, single version of truth from the data. So with this, let me invite Sunil, who will, again, take more from this slide itself and go deeper into the concept and tell you more.
Okay. Yeah. Thank you, Ankur. I have a voice problem today. I'm having cold, but this was pre-planned event, so we want to make sure we do a justice to this webinar. Ankur highlighted all the challenges we are facing with the growing data, and I'm the hands-on person who is facing these challenges, and thanks to MetaScale for coming and providing an alternative viable solution. And the key thing here is economical, that I can use a different platform to complete my processing needs. So quickly, like as he mentioned, every time we were building a system, traditionally, we will introduce an ETL process. As technology was changing, we went from mainframe to BI and then client server. Every time we come up with a new computing framework, like there is a ETL introduced, so that we continue to move the data from legacy application to the new applications, which will become a legacy again. And every time we do this, we are introducing ETL and spending a lot of project time to just move the data. That was unsustainable. In addition to that, as the data is growing, there was a tremendous pressure on ETL itself, and it started becoming bottleneck and not adding any value. So we were challenged to come up with an alternative ecosystem which can handle the data. In addition to handle the big data, it will also process the data faster. So this is a new framework where you can see you can extract the data from multiple sources. This can be structured and unstructured. And to give an example, you can have public data like weather. You can have master data like customers, products, and then you have transaction data like a sales. You could have supply chain data. You could have sentimental data from the social. You can get all those data sources which traditional data system was not handling, database systems were not handling, and push into this framework based on Hadoop. And as Ankur mentioned, one huge advantage here is the scalability, because we don't know how the data is going to unfold. We all know like it is growing rapidly, but we did not know like how much. So if I had to go with the traditional platforms, I had to place an order with an Oracle or some other company and lock my money. Instead of that, I'm going here with a scalable approach to where I have something to start with, and as my need grows, I'm adding more commodity hardware. So the overall ecosystem and framework really help us to be flexible and start delivering value as market demands. So the next slide, which we call Hadoop in Enterprise, in our view, like the Hadoop is at the center of the ecosystem which we envision for the future computing as well as future data storage. So we bring the data from multiple sources, bring it into the enterprise Hadoop. So that's where like we use the Hadoop's computing power. Hadoop actually does two major things for us. One, it can allow us to store data for cheap as much you want, as well as it allows us to process the data faster for cheap. So those two core components help us to win by creating the enterprise data hub as well as the processing hub. And then whatever we process, then we can push it out to the outside systems like reporting system, target system, and any analytics we need to do. The interesting fact here, as we started adopting this framework, we realized that we can do analytics much faster, and we take the burden out from the end system, like where we were building the cubes for the BI type of portals and apps. We started building the cubes within the Hadoop. By doing that, we started consolidating our infrastructure, hardware and software. So hub is a powerful concept, I think, and Hadoop enables to create that hub. The data, the governance is very critical. One of the learnings we had is as people realize Hadoop is cheaper, you can keep a data, everybody started dumping it, and very soon you will realize that like you are not truly adding any value. So what is important is that when you launch any of these kind of technologies, especially in the big data world, the governance is very critical. And one of the things which MetaScale has invested and learned and came up with methodologies like how do you get off the shelf, right, data governance model. So you establish an enterprise hub and then establish the data governance that allows you to reuse the data for many different objectives, such as like reporting, analytics, as well as the recording, like to use as a system of record. The scaling up with Hadoop, this is a huge benefit what Hadoop offers. Is you can start really with a 10-node cluster and then take your painful point, move your data to Hadoop, play with it, and as you start showing the value to your organization, you can start scaling up. So it's easy to jumpstart something like some projects or big data projects with Hadoop in very short investment, and you could prove that like your ROI will be significant. One of the example I would quote is like we were processing ton of data on a data stage platform, And when we realized that data stage is not enough to process more data which is coming in, we needed to go and start scaling it up. So the challenge was to invest another $1 million into hardware and software licensing so that we can meet the need of to meet SLAs by processing data on data stage. So instead we created another parallel project to put it in Hadoop and transform all the things or write the transformation what data stage was doing into Hadoop, and we gained, we were able to do that in 20% of the cost overall, and then not only that, we put a framework which can be used by other systems. So this scaling up really helps. Scaling up actually does in two different ways. One is storing as much data you want, but as you add more data node, it also improves your processing speed. So you can really reduce your batch processing cycles into from hours to minute. An example I would give is like we had a data set of a billion. There were about 3 data sets of billion rows, and we have to run a logic to find the collision between these 3, and that was taking about 10 hours, and when we moved that to Hadoop, it was done in 17 minutes. The beauty of that is like, no matter if it is going from billion to 1.5 billion, my 17 minute was moving like a minute or 2, but processing that on the other proprietary platform was going linearly. So many use cases such as that we have implemented so far with the help of MetaScale in CS. Analytics in Hadoop. So one thing you really get is Hadoop is an ecosystem. It's Hadoop project as a core is a processing platform where you are storing data into something called HDFS and processing using a framework called MapReduce. But with Hadoop, you get Hive, which is very heavily used in Facebook for doing analytics, and the Pig, which is very popular in the worlds of LinkedIn and Yahoo. So Hadoop and Hive and Pig, these two are very powerful transformation languages. You can do a lot of analytics using these two. In addition to that, you could get machine learning softwares, which is called Mahout, into the same ecosystem. So what you are getting when you get into Hadoop is a near complete ecosystem where you can do an ETL, you can do analytics, you can store a data, you can process the data as fast you want. So when you are putting your use case for your customers or like your organization, it's easy to show possibilities of transforming your organization's computing capabilities by bringing in Hadoop into the middle. We could also, divert the low, computing which is not super critical into Hadoop. And by doing that, you can reduce the load from your proprietary applications. Okay. The future value of data. So far, being a retailer, I can tell you, I always know what price I sold an item, but it's very difficult to know what price I did not, unless I start keeping that. And having the platform where I can keep the data for cheaper and process the cheaper enables me to keep the data which previously we thought is not significant in terms of value. Now we can take advantage of that. So the value of clean data is tremendous because I think, as you can see, the data science is evolving, and the goal of data science is creating more data product. Many companies having the data in one place can think about creating a data product or data services using this platform. So the case study which I'm going to walk you through is what I highlighted earlier, is that ETL was necessary where, we were doing a lot of batch processing. So you bring the data from multiple sources and, it's about 400 million rows, 500 million rows, sometimes billions rows, and you run the computing and then get let's say a price out from this system. What happened is, as we started adding the more products and we need to do more price changes, this system started choking. And only way you can resolve this is by adding more and more hardware and more software licensing. So we have to move and find an alternative to solve this problem. And thanks to Hadoop and Hadoop ecosystem, it really helped us to start creating an alternative or viable platform. So we started looking into existing data stage transformation and rewrote those into Hadoop. And our speed of writing the transformation was a lot easier, and we had good documentation of what was happening into data stage and how it is going to happen into Pig. Actually, the code started compressing because Pig is very powerful language. So at the end of the project, which was about 6 weeks project to transform this, we moved substantial amount of processing into Hadoop. We avoided paying the lot of licensing cost as well as these investment into the future hardware. In addition, we created a scalable platform. So anytime my volume goes up, Hadoop is really helping me reduce the batch window. So no matter what volume goes up, Hadoop sticks to the same processing time. This added tremendous value to our business, because now we are meeting SLAs consistently. In fact, we are delivering some of the key required deliverables ahead of time using Hadoop. This is a quick picture of Enterprise Data Hub. The concept of Data Hub, really, we believe we pioneered it 2 years back, where we wanted to get the data into one place, especially in the Hadoop world. Get all the master data first, get the transaction data, and you can run multiple transformation job and start delivering the information to multiple systems. So Hub is really doing 2 things for us: keeping data in one place, so we have one single source of truth. In addition, it is also processing in one place, so I have a less of data movement. So these 2 powerful concepts enabled us to make Hub as a centerpiece of our computing ecosystem. Okay, so the key learning here is big data is real, and it's going to become a much complex as we go forward, because more and more data sources coming in. Real-time analytics is going to be the need of the hours. Traditional systems are going to be challenged unless you are putting a lot of investment. You will not be able to match the real-time needs, but platforms like Hadoop can start processing things faster. I think Hadoop will coexist with the existing ecosystem, but Hadoop is going to come and facilitate transformation in a way that wherever there are IT challenges, Hadoop can be enabled or used to relieve those, such as the data storage challenge, such as the data processing challenge, such as investing into analytics challenge using the Hadoop. So we are able to produce our systems faster. We have actually seen in some cases the project lifecycle has reduced by 50 to 70%, because we are not doing any ETL type of work. Data is already there, and we just start coding using the data from the Hub. We believe it has to be ecosystem. You want to get Hadoop, Hive, Pig, along with the systems like MySQL and other enterprise ecosystem. So I think based on our experience, I would just say get into it, create a small project. MetaScale can help you to launch a small cluster, and take your data, move that, compare it, and you will see the value for yourself. Okay. If you have any questions, I will take it, and I'm going to hand over to Nathan. Thank you.
All right. Thanks, Sunil. Yeah, we do have a few questions coming in, and feel free to send your questions via chat. The first question we have here is kind of refers to possible disruption to the end user. How does this process affect the business user?
Excellent question. So good news is that as Hadoop is growing from the ecosystem point of view, there are many products are coming into play. So traditionally, in case of the BI, like you have BI tools enabling the data which is stored into data warehouse. With Hadoop, there are products like the data mill, which looks like Excel. So you are actually connecting to Hadoop, looking like an Excel. And some of our users loved it because now they are able to do an analytics in the way they run some of the computing, the way we are doing on worksheets, but they can do it on a 500 million rows data set. In addition, like there are many existing BI tools are enabling connections to the Hadoop. So you could still use your existing investment. Only thing what is changing is the behind the scene, the processing is changing. So our experience is that, it's a change management thing. If you manage that, okay, these are the problems which you cannot do it now, you can do it using Hadoop, they will be very excited. And my personal interaction with multiple users tells me that, like, if I explain that, look, I can give you this file which is like 10 million rows, you don't know how you'll do it. Their first tendency is whether Excel or Access handle it. For that, my answer is, here is what you can do: the same thing what your Excel and Access can do directly on a Hadoop, and you don't have to worry about the volume, and they are very pleased with that.
Oh, exciting stuff.
Okay.
Kind of a follow-up to that is, you mentioned establishing layers in Hadoop. How does this affect how users can access the data?
Yes. So there is a confusion about the security with the Hadoop, and with the help of MetaScale, we have come up with an approach where we structure the data into different layers. Something we call a gold layer, which means that it's a clean data, anybody can use it. We created a Smith layer and work layer. So for example, you could use a Hadoop just for a simple processing. Nobody need to reuse that. Like, you can get into the layer called work layer, you process it, you destroy it, and move on. In addition, once you have these layers, you can establish the security level, like who can access what type of data within this Hadoop data hub. We have created, like, we created a platinum layer, which is more like backup. And in addition, something we created called Smith layer. So Smith layer is another layer where you can do an application level processing. So the layered approach helps you to establish better data governance. And one of the challenges with big data is, like, people jump on it, use the easily available open source, but if they lose the control over the governance of data, they pretty much lose the project. So that's where, like, the company like MetaScale can help you and give you a guidelines that, like, what not to do. Everybody will tell you what to do, but we will come and tell you what not to do, so you'll be successful.
Okay, great. You referred to Hive and Pig.
Mm-hmm.
Is there any benefit to using one over the other?
Excellent question. So to give you a little background, like, Hive got evolved into Facebook, and most of Facebook jobs run on a Hive, and the Pig got evolved in the Yahoo world. Objective of both is to access the data in a Hadoop and process it. Both of them, they indirectly convert the data, and create a map-reduce job, which is the framework of processing the data in a Hadoop. So Hive is more like a query, like a language. So if you want to do a quick ad hoc analysis trying to find out, okay, what are my top 5 products sold into this area, or what is my sentiment of the 100 comments I received, all that type of things you want to do quickly in the structured way, or like in a query language, like use a Hive. So Hive comes up with language called HiveQL, Hive Query Language. So people in your organization, if they love query languages like a SQL, they can easily love the Hive and HiveQL. So that's one way of accessing a Hadoop data or processing data, Hadoop data. Second is Pig. Pig is more like a procedural language. It has a lot of parallelism. So if you want to run some kind of a batch processing where like you take a data, you filter the items which are not sold versus sold, and you want to write a programmatically language, a sequence of rules, you want to use the pig. So in our view, if you want to deploy something in a production in a continuous way, you may want to use a pig. If you want to do something like a ad hoc, use a Hive. Both can be interchanged, but that's where our experience of best practices come into play. We know when to use pig versus Hive. Okay.
All right, that's a good breakdown. I think we can squeeze in one more question here. Have you faced or have you noticed any limitations using an open source platform like Hadoop?
Great question. In fact, like the Hadoop is not the first open source we use. It is open source. MySQL is open source. Most of our relational databases are in the organization are running on MySQL. Actually, you got to be careful in a few ways that you got to create a right framework. When do you want to do upgrades? Because it's open source, rapidly people will be adding the new feature. You want to make sure that you are in line. But there is no risk as such we have found with the open source. We were very pleased with open source because we are staying in current with the software itself, and I'm not at the mercy of getting the funding to get upgraded for the next version just because another feature came in. So I'm getting out of the marketing cycle and the budget cycle for upgrading my software. So that's why we are embarrassing. We like the lot of the implementations of open source projects.
Okay, so some good points. And with that, I think we can wrap up the webinar for today. I'd like to thank Ankur Gupta and Sunil for joining us and sharing their insight on the ETL process and speeding up workloads with Hadoop.
Yep.
And if we had some good questions. If you have other questions or would like more information, or if you have specific problems that you're facing with the ETL process within your organization, feel free to reach out to us. Our email is contact@metascale.com. We also have a variety of resources on our website, metascale.com, including a white paper called The Changing Landscape of ETL, as well as a white paper on making a case for Hadoop in your organization, which will give you some good pointers and a checklist for getting started on Hadoop in your organization. So again, thank you for joining us today. Just a reminder, we have another webinar scheduled for this Friday on the Hadoop training landscape and what MetaScale brings to that. So we hope to see you then. And with that, have a great day, and thank you for joining us.